Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sandy Quinn, and I'm president of the Richard Nixon Foundation, and I welcome you here today. Join me, please, in thanking Chuck Jay and this great group from Villa Park High School. Thank you, Chuck. We'll hear from these wonderful youngsters over here from Orange High School in a few minutes. Thank you, Mike Short. Please join me in welcoming our speaker today, former National Security Advisor, Lieutenant Colonel Bud McFarlane, accompanied by the former military aide to President Nixon, Colonel Jack Brennan. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand while the Navy Sea Cadets from Seal Beach take their positions. Aren't they a great bunch of kids? And now, ladies and gentlemen, the presentation of the colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Yorba Linda City Councilwoman and our good friend Nancy Reichel.
Francis Bellamy, a Baptist minister, wrote our original Pledge of Allegiance in 1892. The pledge includes important points of our national history, beginning with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. The true reason for the allegiance to the flag is the republic for which it stands. The republic is the concise political word for the nation, the one nation which the Civil War was fought to prove. To make that one nation idea clear, indivisible was added. The last change in the Pledge of Allegiance occurred on Flag Day, June 14, 1954, when President Eisenhower added the words, "under God," and stated, "In this way, we are reaffirming the transcendence of religious faith in America's heritage and future. In this way, we shall constantly strengthen those spiritual weapons which forever will be our country's most powerful resource in peace and war," end quote. Let us not forget who we are and what we stand for. And please join me now as we salute our flag and the greatest country in the history of the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chuck. Great music, particularly for any veterans who enjoyed Bob Hope's great presentations all over the world during several wars or ever went to a USO. Thank you again, all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, as you probably know, we are live streaming this globally via YouTube today. And because of that, I want to remind not only you, but this audience that we are presenting this program from an exact replica of the White House East Room. That's the room we're in now. And right outside the windows is the birthplace where Richard Nixon was born in 1913. He lived there for several years, went on to Whittier and Whittier College, and eventually he too became a veteran because he joined the Navy. He served in the South Pacific and went on to become America's commander-in-chief not once but twice. So a veteran indeed he is. We honor him and all veterans today. I want to cover a couple of things that are coming up. One is November 15th in Washington, D.C. We do programming all over the country, and on the 15th, next week, we are presenting a Richard Nixon Legacy Forum on the work that he did, the visionary and innovative work that he did with the American Indians. We are doing this at the Smithsonian American Museum of the American Indian, and it is on Richard Nixon's vision for self-determination. And it's an educational program with participants from the Nixon administration who participated in that innovative action in the White House. It's free and open to the public. On the 27th of November, for those of you who are still pondering the election, you can come hear Newt Gingrich, who's had opinions on this in the past, and we'll have it again here in this room from this podium at 7 o'clock on November 27th. And if you'd like to attend, tickets are available at the door. On November 19th, we open our annual Christmas program, this one called Trains, Treats, and Traditions, presenting decorated trees from countries around the world. Bring the family. It goes until January 2nd. It'll be fun and educational for anyone wanting a little holiday spirit. On January 6th, here at the Richard Nixon Library, Tricia Nixon Cox will participate in a formal wreath laying. Next year is Richard Nixon's centennial year, his 100th. So we're kicking that off on Sunday, January 6th. It's free all day, and Tricia will participate in a wreath laying. We also have former White House Richard Nixon speechwriter Ken Kachigian offering his memories of working with Richard Nixon. And on that same day, as part of that ceremony at 11, and later in the afternoon, we have the United States Marine Band performing. So it's free and it's open to the public. Please come. On January 9th, Richard Nixon's 100th birthday. We will celebrate that occasion with a birthday gala, the Richard Nixon Centennial Legacy Birthday Gala and Reunion in the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C., in the Grand Ballroom where Richard Nixon had two of his inaugural balls. And it's a gathering of all those who worked in the White House and his family and his friends and supporters. If you're in Washington, you're welcome to come. Tickets are available by checking us out online, which is now write this down, www.nixonfoundation.org. On February 15th, here at the Richard Nixon Library, we open the Richard Nixon Centennial Legacy Exhibit, a 4,100 square foot look at the several things that we think are the most important pillars of his life and legacy. It will be up all year. I hope you will plan on coming. Ladies and gentlemen, Clay Baxter has been a good friend of ours for many, many years. He was a helicopter pilot, combat pilot in Vietnam. He's been a member of the American Legion for 25 years, and for 10 of those, he's been head of the Richard Nixon American Legion chapter and I welcome him to the podium for a moment of comments.
Just a moment. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clay Baxter. I am the commander of the Richard M. Nixon American Legion Post here in Yorba Linda, which has been in existence for over 60 years. I'm a very proud member to have served in the U.S. Marine Corps 1966 through 72. I want to make a correction. I was not a pilot. I was a helicopter gunner. I made sure my troops got home safely, and I'm very proud of that. When we think of veterans, and the popular concept today is to consider them as warriors. The recent devastation on the East Coast brings home the reminder that humanitarian and oftentimes life-saving work is performed by our veterans on a daily basis, 7 days, 24 hours. Our men and women in service and uniform are ready to protect, restore, and begin the process of healing damage caused by natural disasters or war. Recently, the Air Force Reserve, the Air National Guard members in Riverside, California, flying out of March Air Force Base, trekked over 3,000 miles carrying equipment to the devastated areas of New York and New Jersey and Connecticut. Also, large deck amphibious ships off the coast of New York, New Jersey, where the Marines, soldiers, Coast Guardsmen were busy rescuing storm victims, rebuilding areas, and providing food, water, and fuel. Veterans Day is intended to honor all of our veterans. Sometimes a simple thank you expressed to a veteran, their family members, for their service and a sacrifice is always appreciated. Part of the sacrifice that these veterans are encountering today is unemployment or underemployment when the veterans' military service has ended. Companies should understand that it is a smart business to hire veterans, and when membership of the National Guard and Reserves are deployed, it is America's business to ensure that their civilian career does not end. We must always remember these veterans who have given their lives for as long after their service has stopped, when they're no longer wearing their uniforms and they start serving their communities. If you go and check the local fire departments, police departments, you'll find many of the members of these forces are veterans. They're continuing to serve today. Men like Navy veteran and Boston firefighter Paul J. Cahill, who sacrificed his life when a restaurant roof collapsed while he was fighting a fire in August of 2007. Or how about Washington State Trooper Tony Radulescu, who was killed on February 21st of this year when he was shot during a traffic accident investigation in Washington State. When emergencies hit, there's a good chance that you'll find a veteran who will be a first responder. An example is a member of my post here at Richard Nixon Post. His name is Caesar Valdemore. I received this email from him on November 9th, 2012. And it states, I'm on detail with FEMA, flying to Maryland tomorrow for orientation, and then deploying to New York or New Jersey to help victims of Hurricane Sandy. Hope to be home before New Year's. I picked up some thermal underwear. It's going to be cold. My colleague's spouse is already at the Staten Island, and his bunk is on the USS Kennedy. They take the shuttle across the bridge and go to Manhattan, going door to door to see who needs help. Likely I'll be doing that too. Deploying seems like old times with the Triple Deuce, which is a unit out of March Air Base, have gone by. It's good to help people. You appreciate what you have. Take care and happy Thanksgiving. Caesar. This is one example. On September 12th of this year, 11 years and 1 day after the worst terrorist attack ever inflicted on the United States, there were 2 Navy SEALs who were killed while protecting their fellow Americans that were under attack at the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi, Libya. Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods understood the meaning of service, and one of their comrades Brandon Webb wrote in the New York Times an open letter stating the following: "I still can't believe you punched out earlier on me. Be glad to hear from the guys that you fought like a hero. There's no surprise there. You should know your efforts resulted in the rescue of over 20 Department of State personnel. They are alive today because of yours and Tyrone's actions." These gentlemen both left behind families, grieving parents, grieving wives, and grieving children. Every day is Veterans Day, and I hope that you will remember that the members that have served in the military continue to serve our communities today. They serve as council members, they serve as policemen, they serve as firemen. I hope that today you extend your hand to them, thank them, and continue to trust them and our security for this great country that we live in and are privileged to exist in today. God bless each of you for being here today, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike Short and the Orange High School Concert Choir and Chamber Singers. Thanks to all of you young people, and Chuck J. again and your great symphonic ensemble. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to introduce our keynote speaker, Lieutenant Colonel McFarlane. We have a man who was named the first Marine military aide to the President. He served President Nixon throughout his terms. He traveled with him throughout the world. He traveled with him to Russia, to Moscow during those important meetings. He traveled with him to China during those important peace-making meetings. He traveled with First Lady Pat Nixon everywhere she went as First Lady. And out of loyalty and commitment, he traveled home with President Nixon from the White House and went to San Clemente and became his chief of staff and was with him for years. He is a wonderful and close friend of the Nixon family, of the Richard Nixon Foundation, and of mine, ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Jack Brennan.
Thank you, President Quinn, and thank you especially veterans. I came to learn during my tenure in the Marine Corps that probably the most difficult job in the Marine Corps was that of a Marine wife, or any military wife for that matter. And so today I especially want to thank those of you who sacrificed so much, being wives and children, family of those who served in the military. And as an apt representation of a young lady, especially who did so much while her father was busy and gone and serving 3 presidents, Bud McFarlane's daughter, Melissa, formerly McFarlane, is here. Please stand, Melissa. She's now a Californian and has 2 wonderful children, Telly and Piper. Please stand. I also want to acknowledge a recent college graduate who chose to move from Florida to beautiful Southern California. My daughter, she's actually my granddaughter, but I don't want people to know I'm old enough to have. This is Megan Russell. Thank all of you. And when we're speaking of service, which is why we're here, the epitome of service to one's nation, the perfect example, the man who has inspired me for the 49 years that I've known him, Bud McFarlane. He's an incredible man from the day he graduated from the Naval Academy, served 20 years in the Marine Corps, including leading the first combat unit into Vietnam in 1965, became one of the 2 original Marines to be selected as a White House Fellow, was an Olmsted Scholar, served in the State Department as Counselor to the Secretary of State, on the Senate Armed Services Committee, served for 3 presidents in the White House, and became President Reagan's National Security Advisor. But just like Speaker Gingrich, just like Vice President Cheney, just like Secretary Baker and so many others, Bud McFarlane started with whom? Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon brought him into the White House as a young Marine officer where everyone recognized his incredible potential, and he grew exponentially to become President Reagan's National Security Advisor, amongst the many, many other things. And I am so proud that he's my friend and your speaker. Bud.
Thanks very much, Jack. My dearest friend in professional life, friend of my family. But for Jack, I wouldn't have been able to have been afforded the opportunities for service and indeed the role model to measure up to the standards that Colonel Jack Brennan has set as a Marine, and very close advisor, President Nixon, and to so many others, young Americans, you've had the good fortune to get close to the Brennan family. I have to say, I want to add a special welcome to Sandy's and to Jack Brennan's, to each of you. And I say special because I think that today, at some level, when you were deciding what you wanted to do, you were reminded. Today is Veterans Day, a day when we honor all those going back 200 years who have answered the call, who have served our country with honor, sacrifice, the loss of life, separation from families, disruption of their lives, to preserve our country and our way of life. And so you came here. You came here because you thought it important to acknowledge that kind of sacrifice and to nurture that tradition. For indeed, this generation, like all those before you, must continue to take the risks, send our young men and women into harm's way. And but for them, we stand to lose all of the fundamental values, blessings we all enjoy in this country. Sandy mentioned President Nixon, and implicit was his role as a veteran. Yes, born here, just a few yards away from here, raised in Southern California and college at Whittier. Went to law school, and indeed, when World War II broke out, had begun a successful law practice. And yet, seeing the threat to our country, he volunteered, joined the Navy, and was shipped out to the South Pacific in the hottest areas of battle as we began to seek to roll back what had happened in Pearl Harbor, Midway, Guam. He was assigned to Bougainville, one of the bloodiest areas of the South Pacific. And after being retaken, it became a transshipment center where hundreds, indeed thousands of C-47s moved all of the beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, and booze now and then, to keep our troops supplied. He did a terrific job there, and yet it wasn't long before he wanted to get closer to the guns, closer to the action, and he asked to be transferred and moved. And he was sent to Green Island, further up, the Marshalls, the Gilberts, and toward Japan, ultimately. He hadn't been there very long when he was exposed personally to the brutality and horror of war, as when planes would come back, crash, burn, Lieutenant J.G. Nixon would be in the rescue parties that pulled pilots out of the planes and the wreckage and got them to aid stations and could see. Many had a ring on their finger, pictures from home, kids. Some didn't make it. You can't do that without carrying away a very deep understanding of what it means to ask young men and women to put their lives on the line. And that lesson was very, very close to his heart as he served 27 years later as the commander-in-chief of our country. And I can tell you, as Colonel Brennan could, on each occasion when there was very likely to be a need to send American forces into harm's way, the President never thought about that in a casual or romantic way. There's nothing romantic about battle. One of the hardest things he did was to write the letters and sign the letters and make the calls. The moms and dads, wives, their sons didn't come home, and their daughters. It wasn't easy for Richard Nixon to have even gone into the service in the first place. As you've gone through the museum, the library, you've seen the history of his own family, raised in the Quaker tradition of pacific doctrine. Indeed, his uncle had been a conscientious objector in World War I. And it wasn't easy for the president, as a young volunteer Lieutenant J.G., to leave his family. His mother, Quaker, could not have been pleased about that, but he believed strongly until he died that when we have to deal with a brutal enemy that has no respect for, even understanding of pacifism, figures like Hitler, Tojo, Hirohito, pacific statement has no impact. And consequently, there are some things you must fight for. What can we say about the current generation? Some of you in this audience today. Well, you are, ordinary Americans who do very extraordinary things. Young, old, Republican, Democrat, Black, Asian, Latino, a melting pot that reflects so well what our country has stood for, starting 400 years ago and then 237 years yesterday since we founded a Marine Corps. Our young men and women have found through time the courage, the dedication, and for their mom and dad, the anguish to send them off to battle. Ordinary men and women who do extraordinary things again and again. Give you an example. David Ray was a hospital corpsman, second class in Vietnam. In 1968, he was killed on Vietnam on the battlefield. He served with particular distinction there. As you know, corpsmen, called doc because they are the medics, usually unarmed in battle, but charged with carrying their rucksack or setting up a primitive aid station in the heat of battle on the front lines. And as the battle is underway, and incoming mortar fire and artillery, their colleagues began to fall here and there. Their job is to go and get them, pick them up, bring them back to the aid station, usually through withering fire, and that was the case with David Ray on that day in 1968, as it was. Near Phu Loc, in a region of Vietnam called An Hoa, came under fire by a reinforced North Vietnamese regiment. And as his colleagues began to fall here and there, he went from one to the other, carrying those he could. Indeed, before long, he came under fire himself and attacked by 2 of the North Vietnamese soldiers. He killed one, wounded the other, and was wounded himself for the first time. But he didn't stop. He continued to fight. Ultimately, he got back to his aid station carrying another wounded Marine on his back, put him down, tried to administer to him, put a tourniquet on, the fire coming in all around him still. He was out of ammunition, and as the grenade came into the aid station, he could see that he was not going to be able to stop what he was doing, even to pull it up and throw it out. So he threw his body on the wounded Marine that he was tending. He died. An ordinary person doing extraordinary things. Second example of the same heroism. Army specialist Monica Brown was still a teenager when she went out on a patrol in Afghanistan in 2007. Her Army platoon was under fire in a battle that lasted several hours. Her vehicle was hit right away, and 3 of her colleagues were inside. It caught fire. And in the next terrorizing minutes, Monica, a petite young woman with body armor on, was the only one still conscious, and yet she managed to pull all of her comrades out of that Humvee, pull them away before it exploded, save their lives. Just an ordinary woman doing extraordinary things. Yes, it is our armed forces that carry the great burden of keeping us safe, free. We are blessed today to have the finest military in the world. It has become better and better and better, and indeed, since the all-volunteer force put into effect in President Nixon's administration, we truly have the best and the brightest ordinary Americans we've ever had. There is a tendency, there is a risk, a real danger that we can, in our society, become removed from having to think about war, because for 90% of all Americans, they'll never have to serve. That's true. No more than 10% of the young men and women in our country will ever have to serve, have to volunteer, or be able to volunteer. And the other 90% can become, if not indifferent, at least not sufficiently conscious to keep on your mind what these young men and women are doing. And every now and then to ask yourself, why do they do that? Why would you go into places that are so primitive, backward? Do we really have anything at stake? Is it worth it? Why do we have to do this? Ask a veteran. Ask a child that's come home from Afghanistan. How was it? And you begin to hear how profoundly different it is. That tribal conditions are different. There are no primaries, There are no elections. There are hierarchies of tribalism in societies scarcely worthy of that name, with no accountability of the tribal chief to the people in the tribe. And these countries are struggling, and we've seen the number of them yearning, struggling, trying someday to aspire to be and to have what we have in our country. We take the rule of law for granted. We have rules in this country, the Constitution and a well-developed set of limits for human behavior. And it enables us as free people to do darn near anything we want, which is a blessing. If you can go to the school, any school you want, become whatever you want to be, it leads to innovation and to discovery and to what has made our country great. Doesn't happen in Afghanistan, doesn't happen in Iraq or most of North Africa, indeed 2/3 of the world. What a blessing. And so when you see a veteran go off, don't think they do it for the money. They've thought about the difference. When they come home, they can tell you how different it is. No, there are no courthouses. Indeed, there's no law. And because I know that, because I've been there and I've done that, when they come home, they say, Mom, Dad, don't take this for granted. We tend to think it can't happen again, that horrific wars of the 20th century surely couldn't happen again. We've become civilized, right? Well, that's what people thought in Germany in the 1930s. When religious German people acquiesced, indeed supported the rise of fascism. We've seen it happen again in Marxist, Leninist Soviet Union, where very, very well-educated people were seduced by the rhetoric of Leninist, Marxist brutality. Today, we're hearing it from different sources, but no less fascist, brutal, tyrannical, this time coming from radical Islamists, a tiny minority of Islam, truly, but a tiny minority that denies the legitimacy of any other way to worship, even among Muslims, than their own narrow extremist doctrine. It happened in Germany. It happened in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. Fascism, communism, Leninism, and today, Islamism, well-financed, well-armed, well-trained, powerful foe. It could come here. Because we are a free country, we honor freedom, we cherish it. But it isn't free. Think about that. Tonight, and every night when you gather for dinner, pray. Think about it. You see a veteran, a young man or woman, thank them. We are so blessed. Honor them. Love them. God bless them.
Thank you, Chuck J. and that great group from Villa Park High School, and Mike Short, your wonderful youngsters from Orange High School. I want to also thank our wonderful docent guild who provides hospitality for this and all our other events. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge the great team here at the Richard Nixon Foundation, which is led by our Executive Vice President, Anthony Curtis, right over there, folks. At 3 o'clock today in this very room, 90 members of the Placentia Symphonic Band will entertain you, so please come back. To our global audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll do this and other events again. Thank you all for coming, and have a great Veterans Day.